Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Middle East African Chamber and MAC Foundation's Umoja Forum. I am Fidel Mienzo, and I am honored to be your moderator for today's discussion. We are thrilled to have you join us as we explore the important topic of next generation leadership, health, and well-being, focusing on perspectives from both African immigrants and African Americans. Our distinguished panelists today bring a wealth of experience and insights on how leadership, health, and well-being intersect in our communities. We'll be diving into how these themes impact our next generation and how we can navigate and address these challenges effectively. Let's start by introducing our panelists. First, we have Mr. Wayne Brown. Wayne Brown has served as the president and CEO of Urban League of Nebraska since 2022. Before his appointment to this current role, he was the vice president of programs for 5 years. A native of Omaha, Brown joined the Army after graduating from Benson High School. After 10 years of service, he graduated magna cum laude from East Tennessee State University. In 2009, he graduated from Cornell University Law School. He served the Omaha community in a variety of nonprofit capacities, from Chief Career Officer of the Avenue Scholars Foundation to the Vice President of the Omaha Community Foundation. An active community member, Mr. Brown also served as the board of several nonprofits such as Metro Area Continuum of Care, Nebraska Early Childhood Collaborative, and HOACC. He is married to Dr. Nichelle Horton Brown and is the proud father of 3 children. Next, we have Mr. Mohamed Jamile. Mr. Jamile is the founder and the executive director of the East African Development Association of Nebraska, also known as EADAN, an organization he established in 2020 with a deep commitment to community development and empowerment. Jamile's career has been dedicated to leadership and advocacy for refugee and immigrant communities. Previously, he served as a board member at the Refugee Empowerment Center in Omaha and as the board president of EADAN. Before founding EADAN, he was a community leader at Kakuma Refugee Camp under UNHCR, where he played a pivotal role in organizing and advocating for refugee rights. His contributions also extended to global humanitarian efforts as a food advisory committee member with the World Food Program. Jamali's experience encompasses conflict resolution, peace building, social work, and case management. In 2024, he enhanced his skills by becoming a certified community health worker at Creighton University in Omaha, further strengthening his ability to support community health initiatives. Originally from Mogadishu, Somalia, he now resides in Omaha, Nebraska with his wife and 3 children, all of whom were born here. Next, we have Mr. Mohamed Sakor. Mr. Sakor is a new programs coordinator at the Middle East African Chamber. Sakor is currently working on his doctorate in education and leadership at Creighton University. Mr. Sakor is originally from Liberia and Guinea, but grew up in the Middle East. Last but not least, we have Ms. Grace Chiza. Ms. Chiza is a first-generation college student and rising sophomore at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, majoring in business administration with a focus on human resource management. She is currently serving as the membership intern at the Middle East African Chamber as she works to develop her skills as a future HR professional. Without any further ado, please help me welcome our panelists. Now let's dive right into our discussion. Mr. Brown, how do cultural differences between African immigrants and African Americans influence approaches to leadership and well-being in our community?
Thank you for that. That's an amazing question. And we get that a lot. What is the difference? I'd rather not talk about the difference, but maybe talk about the journey on how culturally African Americans got to where we are. Of course, after slavery, there was the 8 years that we might have been empowered. there was that 8 years after slavery where America had a choice on which way it was going to go. It chose the other way. It chose Jim Crow. It chose not to go with the Freedmen's Bureau and provide land or banking. It chose not to um, put equal citizenship on the table. So you've got 400 years of slavery, you've got Jim Crow, you've got redlining where wealth was not able to be created, you had white flight from those communities. And then when folks tried to come together in the 60s, you had a counterintelligence movement that infiltrated the Black community that made it so that it was very difficult to trust each other, right? And so at the end of the day, what that looks like when you have our current leaders, we lead from a perspective that might look a little different than our other leaders. We've learned how to make a way out of no way. We've come from a situation where we didn't have anything, and so a lot of what we do is improvisation. It is figuring out how to get around a situation. It's figuring out how to, we sometimes say by hook or by crook to make things work. And so what that has made our leadership style is innovative, from our music to the businesses that we create to the clothes that we wear. You have this difference that we've put a stamp on this country. But it's made us valuable. I think it's been our superpower. We also hold each other accountable. And I'll tell you in this way, it may not seem that way to the larger community, but there are no big I's and little U's. And what that means is that no matter how high you get, your education, how much money you make, the community will bring you back and look, you are not too big to be a part of this, and you better throw the rope back. So when we lead with a sense of community. Sometimes we have survivor's guilt when we make it successfully. So we lead with humility, vulnerability, and a sense of community. And so it does color the way in which we lead. Some of the three examples of men that I've tried to follow, you had Barack Obama, who had to be so perfect, right? You have Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's like, man, forget this system. We're going to do it our way. You've got Eddie Glaude, who sings about the hope in the future. And so you got to figure out as a Black leader which direction you're going to go. And sometimes it's a combination of all three. But all three are birthed out of a struggle, birthed out of a movement, birthed out of where we come from.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else wants to chime in?
Yeah, really, thank you, Mr. Brown, for that vital information. From the African immigrant perspective, I think our perspective aligns with what Mr. Brown just mentioned. And in fact, we, the Africans, in most instances, we have what we call cultural appreciation. We do value leadership, we value self-esteem, self-confidence. We try to build that within our community through collective approach, where we try to work together, even though we don't have that enough resources in our community, but we try to come together, build these resources, mechanisms where we can definitely collaborate, work together, team up, build a network where we can team up and support one another in different ways. So culture in general, from the perspective of we the African immigrant, we always encourage one another that we should definitely look to help one another, because we're in situations where we are new to the culture, we are new to the systems, but yet at the same time, we just have to work together, come together, know very well that the systems is not friendly to we the Black in general, because if it was friendly, what all Mr. Brown just mentions will not have happened to the African community here. But with all that, it is a challenge. And as Black people in general, the African American and the African in general, we love to be challenged. And I think we always champion those situations.
You're muted.
Thank you. Mr. Jamali, can you please share your perspective with us on this question?
Hello?
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like me to repeat the first question?
For the first question, right?
Yes. Let me go ahead and repeat it for you. How do
Okay.
cultural differences between African immigrants and African Americans influence approaches to leadership and well being in our communities?
Okay. So when we are African leaders or African community in Omaha, we have a unique difference for African American society in United States. We came from Africa where we have never had any colonized. We have never had any slavery. In my background family, we never have a slavery. When slavery people come to Somalia, they left because people run away. Our family they just decline. But the unique thing we have is we share the information, as Muhammad said. We always come together and have that unique information always because we are very minority population, and we always our leadership is come together, support each other, and give opportunity for each other. The main thing is an African American and African have a different culture. African American society they already adapted American American culture where people you see they just live alone, saying this I can do my own, I can be like this. So the unique thing is when we came from, we live together as a families. When we move here, we still live together. I have a lot of families, a lot of people I never met them in my life, but when I show up here, we become a family. So they just respected me. We share information, we share resources. When I look at African American culture, they already adapted. That culture is I can do my own. Is this is American? So we still have that culture in Omaha. Also, we have a businesses. You can see a Somali women who never been in school, have never been high school, never been in middle school, have a very successful business. Why? She gets support for the families, she gets support for the community, giving knowledge. So maybe she has some capital money, and other people supporting her, that person, to give, saying, hey, you can do this, you can fill this paperwork, you can go state Nebraska secretary office, make registration name, go like IRS, make for taxi ID. She don't know how to speak English, but the community helping because we have that unique cultural communication that we used. So, but in Africa, the same people, whether they're born here or where the African come from, we are all Africans, and all we have that blood relationship. But cultural we difference. So my understanding is African who came here, they have their own unique story about how they have a cut communication. So that's what I can say. Yes, sharing information, sharing resources, showing the saying, "Hey, I need a job." We always tell them fill out this application. Oh, I know someone who is like Lexington. Someone might be living Lexington, and he's in Omaha. He's looking a job to move that city, and he don't know anybody. But we have a families, we have a community. They say, hey, go to the address, go to that mask. You get someone, you can get a starting job, and the person he's going, he never made before. But we have a cultural unique. You can't leave me alone. We are same. So the person must be accepted you to give you opportunity that you can live with him or stay with some days, some weeks.
Thank you, Mohammed. So, if I understand correctly, your emphasis is mainly on how, as Africans, we live in unity and we help each other. We
Yeah.
operate mainly as a village, and everything we do it together. So, with the example you gave of someone who may come to this country without any educational background, but they're able to succeed as an entrepreneur because she or he has his village behind him that is going to help him through the process of being a successful entrepreneur in this country. I love that perspective. Thank you. Grace?
Just echoing what everybody has already said, I think, African immigrants, we really live, like you said, as a village. So I think in leadership, that translates to decision making, to where, we have a collective approach when it comes to how we make decisions, whether be it from, an individual level or when we go into various leadership positions. And if you look at it from the African American perspective, just as Mr. Jamal pointed out, it's the American culture, the Western culture is more individualism. People focus on, individual ideas, individual perspectives. And so their approach to decision making might be, individualistic, to where I can decide what I want to do when I want to do it. And that really does translate in the way we approach leadership and in the way we operate as a community.
Thank you all for sharing your perspectives on that. Let's move on to question number 2. And I'm going to have Mohammed Sakor respond to this question for us to start with. Actually, let's do a follow-up. I wanted to ask you guys a question. So can you provide me with examples of how these cultural differences manifest in leadership, styles, or health practices?
So I started off. I'll go ahead and kick it off again from the African American perspective. So I will make note of this. I think if you were to go back to 1960 or 1954, pre-Brown v. Board of Education, when the Black community was in segregation, I think that those communities did act like their immigrant counterparts. Once Brown v. Board was lifted and folks could live like their neighbors, the community did take up a lot of that individualism. And I think that also falls into that well-being piece. We found that collective health and well-being through our churches. We found it through our personal communities. It could be around bowling leagues that used to be very popular. It could be around family gatherings. It expresses itself in different ways. But because of that individualistic nature of what America kind of brings, there are some challenges that we find that there's isolation from. Historically, maybe not being able to go to and talk about going to a behavioral health specialist or a psychologist, psychiatrist. Sometimes with religion saying that there might be some type of stigma going around with behavioral health. Along with being an African-American male or woman, the challenges of making sure that you have your stuff together. And if it's at any point that you're not a strong Black man or a strong Black woman, can you be a leader in the society and make your way? And so lots of challenges there, but I'm sure that's not just for African Americans. I'm sure that is also for other cultures as well.
Thank you for that perspective, Mr. Brown. Let's move on to question number 2. What unique challenges do African Americans and African immigrant leaders face when addressing mental health and well-being within their communities? Mohammed Sakor?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think from the African perspective on this is that in most African culture, what you get to realize is that mental health problems is a taboo. In some instances, people don't often talk about it. People don't engage in it. It's somehow stereotypical. People think if you were to declare that you have a mental health problems, that would lead to labeling you as a crazy person. In fact, those newly immigrants that came from Africa, they have just a fear of institutionalizations of just idea, which might lead to deportations and all this stuff. So basically, they will just let it go, and they will try to navigate through other systems or other mechanisms to help them solve those mental problems. But just recently, what we have realized that the African immigrants that are coming to Nebraska or other city in the Midwest, we found that there is awareness going on about mental health issues. People are speaking about it through the church or the Islamic leaders or other communities. We found that there is awareness about it. People are engaging to talk about it. And one of the best things that I've get to see about it is that the fact that people help one another to lead them to the resources, where to find help and support in coming or overcoming just a challenge. So I think from the African perspective, there is some progress that has been achieved in the last 3 years, especially after the COVID-19, where people were really engaged in discussing health and pandemic at home on the dining table with friends. Uh, and I think that has had a very, very progressive notifications on that.
Thank you, Mohammed. That is a great point. Mental health, that topic in the African community, it's not something that is easily discussed. A lot of people suffer quietly, in their homes, in whatever situation they may be going through. And it's just really sad, to know that people are going through such things. But because they don't want to be labeled, like Mohammed mentioned, people will never actually acknowledge or accept that, they are having an issue. There's a problem that needs to be dealt with. So for me, I feel like just being able to acknowledge that there is a problem and trying to resolve it helps so much more because you're able to dive to the root of the problem, the cause, right? And then you can find a solution. But until that is actually done, until you can acknowledge that there's a problem here, let's address it, we still have a long way to go. But slowly but surely, we are getting there. Grace?
Yeah, I agree with what Muhammad said. And just like adding to that, I think for me, a challenge is language. And by language, I mean if there isn't a way to communicate mental health in your native tongue, you see there becomes a break in communication. To say if you're never taught how to express, your emotions in your native tongue, if you're never taught how to talk about mental health in your native tongue, it becomes, like Muhammad said, a quote unquote taboo topic. So I think that's a very big challenge. So like you said, we're having awareness, and that's great, to where we now have tools, and we have access to tools where we can now start having those conversations about mental health and say, hey, this is normal and this is something that exists.
And can I jump in on too with that on that same point? And then the African American community, um, the ability to trust the person across from the couch or the desk from you. Do they have your best interest at heart? Are they culturally competent in what problems you might have? Can they diagnose and see
Yes.
things that they may not have had a cultural root in? And so I also see that as along with language and then cultural competency as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Wayne. And it just speaks volume, you know, just being able to have someone that looks like you, that you can talk to, that you know that that person is not just listening, but they're actually hearing you. It speaks volume. And I will tell you that every time I see on any board or anywhere, whether it's on social media or online, and I see a Black person that says therapist, counselor, I'm like, yay, thank God we're getting somewhere. Yes, because it's bad enough that the topic alone is still taboo to some people. Now having to sit across someone that does not look like you, that does not sound like you, for those of us that have an accent, you know, it's I'm just so happy that more and more people of color that look like us, that sound like us, that have our best interests at heart are getting to this field of, I'm a therapist, I'm a counselor, let me just hear you. Like whatever you're going through, it's okay. We can fix it. I can help you. So that to me, it just brings me so much joy. Just knowing that it's not just a problem, but there's a way and there are people who are out there who are willing to help us resolve it. So yes. Let's go on to how can these challenges be overcome and what resources or support systems are effective? Can anyone share?
Just to get it started, I think for me, the first step would be definitely focusing on representation. Like you brought up a very good point of just like having, something like sitting across from somebody who, you can relate to, that has a significant impact on addressing mental health. So the first step for me is definitely focus on representation, to say we need people who are, as Mr. Brown said, culturally competent, people who can get the message across, people who can acknowledge diverse perspective and experiences.
Yes, I
Thank you.
agree with that too. Yeah, I agree with the cultural communication. When we started founding this organization in 2020 in during COVID-19, the community we came from, there was not connection between the other agencies or other foundations or other entity for the government. So when we established for this organization, I didn't know there was something mental, but we found it because in our cultural we always denied mental health. Mental health, it could be if you don't pay your rent. It's kind of mental health. What I was finding later, 2 years when I was running organization, I was finding even mental health. It could be when you don't have for your food. So in Africa, if I say you have a mental problem, that means you're crazy. You put everything down on your street and you're running. That's what we have that idea for mental. But when I was running organization 2 years, I found it mental health in the United States, it could be when you don't pay rent and you sleep in that apartment, you don't get to sleep that night because you worry about eviction. So when we started this organization, we established for rent assistance program, utility assistant, food pantry, translation services, and health. So that help now a lot of families are feeling okay. Whenever they have a trouble, they come in with us and we connected resources that are around the area, which might assist for rent. Maybe they have eviction note. We tell them we know the organization who can support it for your rent according for your document you show me. That's what I started. I found it that people now feeling good mentally because they used to come and say they complain about, oh, the white they don't like us. We came from Africa. They don't want to help us, but they never connected that resources. And when they did not get that resources, it become mental health because they just put their mind something that people don't like them, but they never go and get for the resources. But in Africa, we always deny it. Even here, people don't take medication about milk. If ever they have a mentally going something, some people they told me they see something different overnight. When they sleep, they see something. That's mental health, and they never take that medication. So what I can say is African they don't still deny the mental health, but as agencies, as a leader, we can support them, show them the resources that could be benefit them. I took a course about the first health, mental health, first aid. I went for training for 10 hours in this year, and I learned a lot of things I didn't know. That's I'm helping the community now, for my community. And also I'm taking a course by 6 weeks in Greater now, starting by tomorrow. That will be 6 week training about mental health initiative, which will be giving me certified to help the community. So mental health always something is there, but will be always denied for the community.
Thank you for your great perspective, and I'm so glad that you engage, in different ways to help your community. Just getting those certifications and just knowing that there are people who may be dealing with things that they don't want to label as mental health issues, but as you, someone who has been trained in this field, you are able to see those things as signs and you are able to provide them with the resources that they need. So thank you for the good work you're doing in the community, Mr. Jamali. Let's move on to our next question, unless Mr. Wayne has something to add.
Oh, just shouting out some resources. Charles Drew has amazing behavioral health services for the community. My good friend Doris Moore at the Center for Holistic Development. And then just, the joy, the House of Afros, Capes, and Curls. Sometimes it's not all about the deep behavioral health issues. Sometimes it's about finding joy. So lots of community resources out there as well that we can take advantage of.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's move on to question number 4. Oh, before we do that, let me read some comments that we're seeing coming through. One person says, this is a great topic. Another one says, indeed, this is the kind of topic we need to get our communities aware of our mental health and our well-being as African Americans and as African. Let's see. Another person says, I also think it's a topic that is very hard for men in both African and African Americans, like both African and African American men have difficulty, discussing these issues. Lokul says, great topic, and thank you all for sharing ideas to better our community. Someone says, I'm a part of those people that need mental health help. So see, like I'm so glad we're having this conversation. So many people are just like out there and they are listening and they know how these things are important. So let's focus. Let's go on to our next question. How do you perceive the impact of social economic factors on health and well-being in both African immigrants and African American communities? Anyone can start us off. Mohammed, I'll pick on you. Mohammed Sakor.
Good. I think socioeconomic has a huge impact on the Black community in general. Um, and in light of the health disparity during the COVID 19, for instance, there was a survey that says that in Chicago, more than 50% of COVID cases, they had more than 50% COVID cases, and nearly 70% of deaths involved were Black. And even though the Black populations in Chicago comprises of 30%. So that shows how importance to address the socioeconomic status of our people in terms of mental health problems and their well-being. So we have to definitely collaborate with institutions that Mr. Brown just mentioned, like Charles Drew, other institutions that will be more impactful in terms of uh, reaching support and help to our community. And that can only be done through prioritizations. We have to prioritize the needs of mental health in our community through promoting the essence of it, through social media, incorporating technology, and doing things that might help to change the situations. And also trying to make sure that there are opportunity for people to work, employment. We should help them find jobs. I think if there is a uplift financially, if they are uplifted financially, that changes a lot of dynamic. That brings in uplifting, positivisms. It brings a lot of changes in our community, and I think it will be a pathway to prosperity and good health.
Henriette,
Thank you for sharing that perspective, Mohammed. Mr. Brown.
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about maybe the elephant in the room when it comes to America. We're one of the few industrialized countries that doesn't have a universal healthcare system, right? So as a base, having healthcare for profit puts a big socioeconomic barrier not only to physical health but behavioral health. And so I just want to point out, as a system, we're one of the few countries that has an economy this large that does not have universal healthcare. In other countries of our size and wealth, you can see that both outcomes, both in mental and behavioral and physical health, have better outcomes because more people have access. And so, sometimes you can be like, what's the point of being in one of the greatest countries in the world if I can't go see a doctor, if I can't make an appointment, if I can't pay my medical bills? And so the socioeconomic component of this is huge, but it's something that we can work on together, I believe.
Thank you so much for that perspective, and that is so true. Money plays a huge role in everything that we do, whether we acknowledge it on that or not. And I have a community health background also, so I've seen how lack of money, like their socioeconomic status, impacts transportation, access to health care, food, and so much more. Language is also another barrier. So there is so much when it comes to someone's socioeconomic status, even their education level, and all those things, because there are resources out there. But if you cannot navigate the system to get access to those resources, nothing is going to be done. So yes, again, this conversation is very important. I'm glad we're having it, and hopefully there will be a positive impact in our community as we start having more and more of these conversations. We're running out of time, so I'm just going to keep it moving. So if I don't get to you to address any of these questions, don't take it personally. Just jump up and say something if you really have something that you think we all need to hear, go ahead, stop me, and we'll make sure that we get to hear your point of view. Okay. What strategies can leaders employ to address these socio-economic disparities? Anyone?
I Yeah, I think just like sitting here and hearing what you guys were saying, I think the first strategy is really knowing how to get resources to people that need it. Creating a pipeline of letting people know that the resources are available and that you have access to these resources. Because many times we have so many programs set up, we have so many resources, these programs have funding, but if the people who need those programs have no awareness, they're ignorant. So for me, the biggest thing is leaders should really emphasize communicating the availability of these resources to communities that desperately, desperately need them.
Thank you, Grace. I love it. There are so many resources, there's so much money in this country, but still the poor are poor and they're only getting poorer. So to your point, yes, yes, and yes, we have to make sure that we're making these resources available to those who need it the most. Thank you.
Also, addition to that, when it's become a resources available in Omaha, most resources is by uh, when it's become resources. Let's say when COVID-19 happened and there's arbor funding came to Omaha, they didn't give any refugee service provider in Omaha. They just they give who they know, because we're not on the list for those who make decisions. Like senator of the state, they don't know about the refugees. I met some of them. Sometime I go Lincoln, I explain them who we are. Some they don't have any idea. So we also need as Africans, immigrant, to be joined for those movement to go in the state capital to add for our views, our agenda, so they can know who we are. But sometimes they funding someone who might not. They give someone money, but that person who don't know the refugees, he even don't know the immigrant community no more. So our families, they don't know those resources, because if they support it for those agencies supporting refugees from refugees agencies who running the agents, it could be supporting a lot of families. So the people who make decision are needed to be considered as we are part of the community. Let's
Yes.
go to the table where people make decision.
Yes, and thank you. To that point, representation is key. And we need to continue advocating and making sure that those who are making those decisions with legislature, they have to hear from us so that they can make sure that these things are being pushed to the top of the decision making process. Like you said, if they don't know anything about any Somali representative or any Somali leaders, how are you ever going to get, whatever your community is dealing with, how are you ever going to get that to the forefront, to the people who are making decisions? So yes, let's continue to, network. I think network is also very important because that's how you get to know more people. And with more networking, I think a lot of things get accomplished. Like I've been into so many rooms, so many meetings, and when you just see how people engage with one another, that's how you know that things are happening. You can sit at a table just having dinner, but it matters who is sitting next to you or who is in that room with you so you can make those connections and make things happen. So yes, representation is key. Let's continue to advocate for one another and for our communities. And that, let's move on to our next question. What role do family and community support systems play in leadership development of young African immigrants and African Americans? I will start us off with this one. I think education plays a big role in that. After education is the family or the elder in that family's own experience. I will give an example. For instance, I came to this country 27 years ago. I was a brilliant student. I'm one of those students that I was doing my math and my biology homeworks in class. By the time school is over, all my homework is done. I don't have to do any reading. I came here at the age of 13. In my math class, even though I wasn't fluent in English or could barely understand anything, it was me and my eighth grade teacher teaching algebra to the class. That's just how I was. But what happens? Because I don't like to read, I never had to read in high school. And my parents, they didn't know what was happening because I came home with straight A's. So as far as they were concerned, their child was doing great, right? I wanted to be a medical student. Yay, she's good. She can do this. I was getting scholarship offers left and right. Yay, she can do this. But because my mother never went to college, so she does have that experience that okay, your child can be very smart, but it's going to take some discipline. She's going to have to do more than just being able to do her homework in class while she's still sitting in another class at school. So I come home, I don't have much to do, but because I have good grades, I wasn't pushed to do more reading. Maybe you should be researching this or you should be doing that. So when I got to college, things were not glorious as I thought it was going to be because now college, there's more reading. You actually have to pay attention, right? So college did not go so well. I had to learn a hard way. But just to say that our cultural backgrounds and the education of our families plays a big role in how we turn out later in life. Is not in any way, shape, or form their fault because someone can only teach you what they know. So as we are here now, the more I see our other African community leaders or other people in our community just letting their kids, just go through school. They have good grades, so they don't worry about, oh, let me put them in an internship, position somewhere. Let me connect them with this person because this is what they want to do when they grow up. There are so many lawyers, so many doctors, in our community. But I feel like we're not using them as much as we can. We're not using those resources. I consider those people resources. If your child wants to be an attorney or a medical doctor, connect them with someone who is an attorney or a medical doctor at a young age when they are already in high school. They can follow them and do different externship programs, and just so that they have an idea of what they want to get into. Like that mentorship is so important so that the person can actually eventually one day realize that goal. Because just getting straight A's, it didn't help me. I learned the hard way. I finally got a bachelor's degree. I did so many other things, and I'm where I am today. And I'm happy because, in one way or another, I feel like I'm doing what God has intended for me to do. But for some people, it's not the same.
I agree 100%. I can empathize with that story. My mother did not go to college. And when she got to the edge of her knowledge, she knew there was one place she could go. And so I keep on my wall her Urban League card. She made sure that when she couldn't help me with homework, I got tutoring at the Urban League. And she didn't know about ACT and financial aid and college access. And so she made sure I was part of the Whitney M. Young Junior College Preparatory Academy. So I was around kids going to college, around adults who knew about college. So, when we get to that point, those resources that are out there, you're right. We got to make sure we can plug these young folks in. 100 Black Men, Girls Inc., the Wellbeing Partners are all kind of there to create this village that does not exist currently, for African Americans. We created through these other organizations, and I know you all are doing the same.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else want
Yeah.
to?
Yes. Additional to that,
I think I really appreciate what you just said and what Mr. Brown just mentioned. In my case, being that I was kind of blessed with both parents educated, we ended up having all those opportunity because of their mentorship. They were the one at home. You have to do this, if not, you won't have dinner. So it was a very restrictive where the family had to play a significant role in it. And thank God, even though when I moved to the United States here, those friends that I came and met here, I didn't have access to mentorship. I didn't know what was the system. So it created a lot of obstacles for me to get to where I wanted to get. It took me a long time, but obviously it works. And in fact, I can mention one story. Today's point is like I live in a community. I met a lot of African immigrant children during summer. They don't do nothing. So what I did was that I collaborated with the Islamic Center of Omaha. And being that I like to play soccer, what I did was that I created a sport club for those young people. And the center was very happy, willingly to support us. So we built a team. where we bring those kids, we start playing soccer with them, and lo and behold, we started like 15 kids, but now we had more than 35 kids that are permanent in the program. So through the programs, we started to teach them the importance of education. We started to inspire them how to become a doctor, how to become a lawyer, and it meant a lot to this family. Especially for those immigrant families that go to work for 8 hours, 12 hours, and come back, they have no communication strategies with their children. The children are just figuring everything on their own. So it just meant a lot to this family that we put in place that strategy.
Thank you so much, and kudos to you for
Uh,
that great work. It's just a way of like seeing a need in the community and creating and finding a solution to address that need. Thank you, Mohammed.
addition, let me add for additional to that, families opportunities when refugees they come to the United States, they have a great opportunity, which I believe even American society they don't have that opportunity. When you came as a refugee officially through State Department, and you came like United Nation referred to United States, there is a big opportunity. That's always I share for the community. When you come here as a child, as a kids, as an adult, all the education is free for you for being become as a refugees, and also you can qualify some programs which will support you when you are going to school. So we are always encourage our communities to take that opportunity. Some they don't. You can see like 21 or 19-year old who's dropped the high school or finished the high school going warehouse job. I always tell them you can only have 5 years if you make sure you can be succeed and get some degree so you can live a better life in the rest of your future. Because I know that that opportunity program support refugees scholarship as they come as refugee status in United States. So that's one thing we always tell the families and the kids to take this opportunity, because here what we have, even I tell my kids here born here, I tell them I didn't have that opportunity. I didn't have this opportunity you have here. Take this opportunity and take the benefit for that thing that you have here. In the future, coming 20 years, your life will change. So this is something the families can support their kids or their children to give encourage for that programs to adapt it for those programs.
Thank you, Mr. Jimali, for
Yes.
sharing that. Let's move on. Can any one of you discuss any successful programs or initiatives that have positively impacted the health and well-being of African immigrants and African American youth?
I can get us started on this. I think for me, like we've talked a lot about mentorship, and we've seen that it's something, mentorship is incredible. Just having young people know that there is somebody out there who can help them and give them access to tools and knowledge and resources to pursue their goals, their dreams, and their desires. That's incredible. And in Omaha, we have the Big Brother, Big Sister of the Midlands. That's like an incredible institution that helps. There is one on one mentoring for kids and youths of all ages. And that's an incredible program. And, just like working with the Midlands African Chamber, and we have our Rising CEO program. It starts tomorrow. And I'm really excited about that. And it's such an amazing initiative because we're taking these young people and telling them, hey, you have a business idea. Okay, let's see, let's make that happen. And I've read, just like working with the organization, I've read testimonies from parents who are reaching out and be like, hey, my kid, they are now different. Their self-esteem has improved, their communication skills has improved. They now have hope. They're now driven, they're now confident. And and it's those stories that actually show you that we need more of this. We need more mentorship programs. We need more spaces where young people can actually, have access to somebody who they can look up to. So that's just a few examples of, resources that are out there. And I hope, we utilize them, we help promote those resources, and, people benefit from them.
Thank you for sharing that perspective, Grace. It's interesting because Grace has only started working with the chamber this summer since May. But
Yeah.
being a young woman, a college student, and she's able to already see the impact that some of these programs have had in the community. It speaks volume. It speaks volume. Thank you for mentioning that, Grace. Does anybody else wants to chime in?
Well, I'd be self-serving if probably do nonprofit malpractice if I didn't talk about the Urban League of Nebraska. It has the college mentoring programs. It's got the Financial Empowerment Center. In that Financial Empowerment Center, we work on building wealth. We partner up with our amazing partners at the Family Housing Advisory Service, the Financial Hope Collaborative, the Empowerment Network, to try to take all these resources and bring them together. And so those programs that we help in school, in work, and in community, and bring together, create a pipeline of success for folks. So definitely the Urban League and other community partners are here to help. Also scholarships, the school piece. If you're a Nebraska resident and you make under $60,000 a year, there's a thing called Nebraska Promise that you can sign up for. So for those folks, there is a way to pay for school. You just have to make sure you're in the right places and get signed up at the right time.
Oh, yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those resources, Mr. Brown.
And I would like to just add to what Grace and Mr. Brown just mentioned. I think there is a collaborations between all community, mainly the immigrant community and the African American community with institutions in Nebraska. I remember during COVID period, there were some institutions, immigrant institutions, faith-based organizations that reached out to me, and they didn't have access to mass. They didn't have access to those. So what we did, we reached out to some of those medical health institutions, and I recognized that UNMC, Public Health Department sponsor us with almost like masks and all this stuff for more than for almost like 2 years. So there's a collaborations between us and a lot of health institutions. But I think what will help us to empower us through these collaborations is to learn about where all the resources, where all the connections, where are the network. I think if there's a teamwork and collaborations between us, I think we will be better off. And as Brown and Briggs and have just been mentioned today, these things that we have to look into and inspire works that, like Mike, our institutions here stand for, to promote awareness, to connect people that need connections with banking if they're in entrepreneurial systems, help those students that are in science, in technology, math. I think all these will better off our society and our community in the long run.
Thank you so much, Mohammed.
Yeah.
We are running out of time, but I just want us to address one more question here before we close. How can leadership training programs be tailored to address the specific needs and experiences of African American immigrants and African Americans?
I'm going to jump in before anybody else says this. We have to be able to create our own, and we also have to be able to work together across culture too. I mean, we're stronger together. But we start creating our own types of Leadership Omaha programs, or we start creating our own leadership development programs. But also being a part of those that are given by the wider community are important as well, because you have to get that social capital from the whole community. But there's something special about what does it mean and what does it take to make it in the corporate space, a little bit different than everybody else. What does it mean to be different when you try to make it in the entrepreneurial space, and how do you talk to bankers and get contracts from government and private business? There's some secrets and tools and tricks of the trade that we should be sharing amongst each other. So creating our own and also integrating to other leadership programs around the city.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown.
So when it's become a corporation and connection, last year I started a connection with African American Network Empowerment in North Omaha. They have what they call 360, the meeting that bring together for the community, which was very value for us when we connected that meeting, and which we get a lot of resources, and other agencies attended that meeting for weekly. So that was a great resource, and we have started that connection since last year. And it's a
Thank you, Mr. Dumali. My follow-up question to this is: are there particular elements that should be included to make these programs
African
more effective?
Empowerment Network in Omaha, and that's a good resource too.
So,
Um,
sorry, you cut off earlier, so we weren't hearing you. I apologize about that. Did you want
Uh,
to repeat what you just said?
yeah, what I said is communication and connection. We started connected with a African American an Empowerment Network. Is a big organization in North Omaha, which bring all African uh, 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 agencies that working for the community, and also bring all the community. So they have what they call a 360 meeting, which bring every Wednesday from 2 to 3, which meet all the government agencies plus different religion leaders plus different organizations, Omaha Police Department, Sheriff Office come together and talk about what's going for the community. And that was a very resource when we attended that meeting. And now we're getting good connection with them. And even I attended for their annual meetings and they have programs that going on. So that will be also a great resource that we starting connect with them because we share the Africans, right? So we have a same story. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I was
Thank
going
you.
to say that Willie Barney, that's a national model, what he's doing there. It's a really special thing in Omaha, and I'm so glad you're a part.
Yeah.
Yes.
What I surprised was last meeting, which was June 4, I think, June 4, there is more than 90 different cities in the United States came together and they asking him, how did you change 17 years in North Omaha? They asking him, the guy, as the founder is called Will Brown. So he was a good grader. He's become a national now. I know, Kansas City, they just following for recently they started that program called 360 in Kansas City. Even I saw New York City, Minnesota, Iowa, all around the United States come together in Omaha and they ask him how you did this change, how you start for shooting in North Omaha. You used to shoot by during daytime. People kill each other. Now we making a lot of progress, developing economically. For $4 billion last year, I think. What they will, that's what they made for the program that he created for the community, and that's how they review for them the state. So it is a great resource too. I would encourage reach out that guy and sit with him and get some idea. I did.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Jimali. We are at the end of our program here. So thank you to our panelists for sharing such invaluable insights. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I'm sure our audience has gained a lot from your perspectives. Too bad that we don't have too much time to dive into any questions. Um, but I want to thank you all for your thoughtful questions and everything that made this event today a success. Because without all of you, I'm not able to lead this panel by myself. So thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to just be here and share your perspectives with us. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts or messages from our panelists?
Um, I would say my thoughts. I'm still thinking about the question that you asked, and I would say my final thoughts is addressed to leaders. I believe we're all leaders here. The people watching, we are all leaders because we have access to spaces where we can make a difference. And with that said, I think as a community, we should learn how to vocalize our needs, learn how to vocalize what we need, vocalize our problems, and learn how to seek resources to help solve those problems. And you're a leader. If you're watching this, you're a leader. You have the tools, you have the power to make a difference. It might be in your home, it might be in your school, it might be in your workplace. So learn how to address the problems that you see, because as we've been saying throughout this conversation, there are resources that are there to help you.
Thank you, Grace. Mr. Brown, any final thoughts?
Just we need to do more of these together. Social capital is so important that we share that with each other. It's so important. It's so important that we show those shining points of light of those things that are successful, so we all have hope that keeps us moving forward all the time. And then coaching all those folks who may not have heard about it to agency, to freedom, so that they know that this journey belongs to them, and that they can go back and then help other people. So social capital, hope, and agency, if we can do that together, we can build something really strong together.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mohammed Sakor, do you have any final thoughts?
Diplomacy, communication, I think that's the key to our success, and I am positive.
Awesome. We have 10 seconds here. Thank you all. I don't want StreamYard to cut us off, but thank you, everybody, and we will see you at our October Umoja Forum. Have a good night.
Bye. Have a
Take
good
care.
night.
Thank you.
It was nice meeting you guys. Bye.